can't resolve them. You can't put a timeline on that. Agreed. Yeah, that's something you can talk about. Absolutely. Agreed. We can't. We gotta have the name on the record. I'm sorry. Okay. Hang on. We're out of order. We're out of order, sir. I apologize. We gotta stick to the record. So yes.
I agree with you. I agree with the mayor that we can't get a solution, but yes, response, whether you want to hear the answer or not. If you can pull up a municipality that happens to have the ordinance or resolution of it, report it to me, and I'll put it on the council.
Absolutely.
Sure. But I do agree with you, you need to be
and answering our emails and giving answers, whether it's the answer you want to hear or not, is not the issue.
How would you know if I answered my email?
I'm not saying you did or didn't.
You're saying me.
We as a council, as
I
to
answer my emails. I answer every single email that comes to me. And
You don't
get
give
an
an answer. Your answer that
I'm
will be in
acknowledging
touch,
it.
have a nice day, it's not an answer.
Oh, I'm sorry, after you got extremely rude.
You got extremely rude, and I went rude right back.
I have the problem right there, Melissa, the tone. You're gonna stop, when you challenge people and wanna fight their families, which you did, to
I
black people.
didn't say that, I
I
said,
did some, I
no, you did not, I
You think she
said,
wants to answer your email?
I'm sorry?
Do you really think she wanted to engage you in conversation after that?
It
You
was
stood
a
up at this
question, I'm
meeting,
setting an
it's on record.
appointment,
Sorry?
and you can't give an answer as to
I
when
didn't say
the
that, I
meeting's
said
gonna
that
be?
you're talking about her, the way she responds to you, now it's you want it to respond a certain way. Can't have it all. Should we put something on there that this is time to respond? I have no problem with that, send it to Doug and he'll send it to us and we'll talk about it. You can't guarantee resolutions, and you also can't guarantee that if somebody is sending you emails and you answer it that you don't like the answer, that's the answer.
And it goes both ways.
100%, but I said you got to send me a certain email saying anything a certain way. No. But you also have to recognize when you conduct yourself a certain way and say, bring your family down, I want to hit you.
I never said that, and I don't
Bring it
even
on.
go, I did not
Bring it
say
on.
that. What I did is I called her out and her family being a bully on Facebook. And I let people that,
Okay,
you want to say it like,
thank you. Carolyn, moving on.
Carolyn Brouillon, 12 Miller Street. I want to know if there was any resolution or update about Wind and Sea and them having the bar that they built without permits.
Has that come
And
before the planning
are
board?
they going to be opening up
Okay.
that, I won't say illegal bars, well, I guess it's a bar that was built without permits. If I had rebuilt my house without permits, I'm sure I would have had any fines. I want to know, has there been any resolution?
As far as I know, they are pending putting an application before the planning board, but that hasn't been done as of
And they were
yet.
directed by our officials to do that?
Yes.
So I guess I'm assuming this.
The construction officials have been working with each establishment and the direction.
More than
they're
one
given.
for the record.
Yeah,
Stuff
it's
that-
31 businesses that were identified, 21 who were visited because 10 are no longer in business. But they have been directed to go to the planning board. As far as I know, they haven't been set up before the planning board, though.
So none of these other 20 businesses have gone to planning board?
They might not necessarily have had to go to the planning board.
You were looked at.
Okay, they were looked at, but if they didn't have to go to the planning board, they weren't going to be given direction to go there.
Okay, so
Wind
specifically
and
to
Sea
my
was
You
question.
specifically said
of
wind and sea, and my answer was the wind and sea was given guidance to pursue the planning board process,
Okay,
specifically for the wind and sea.
and they have not yet gone before the planning board?
It hasn't been heard before the planning board now.
Okay, Tim, for clarity for the public, what is the consequences or failure for such a business not complying to the planning board decision? And it's not just when it's there's several other establishments. Because one of our directives was, as a council, I believe, was to make sure post-Sandy that all businesses are compliant. And most of the businesses have been very forthright in stepping up to the plate. But wrong is wrong. Like I said, you build a house without a permit, there's consequences.
I can't, you're asking me to answer a question on a supposition, what happens if? We don't know what they're going to be operating there to speculate on that. If they are operating in a manner that's not conducive, then I'm sure there'll be ramifications. But it's almost saying if they don't go before the planning board, that they're going to be definitely violating some type of statute that we have. So you've got to get them through the process And if they do violate that, then absolutely there's gonna have to be action taken.
If I can just rephrase my question then,
Can
I
I
know
ask-
if I park in a handicapped spot, my fine is gonna be $100.
You got a ticket, whatever it is.
If there is, and if I continually do it, it's another 200 and it goes on and on and on.
Eventually they suspend your
So
license.
if there's a business that is a clear violation of not applying for permits and they don't do anything about it, what is the violation
I was
for
gonna ask,
that
we could ask
business?
our attorney, because I believe there's.
I don't know what the,
But
I don't know the fine off the top of my head.
Common sense, there's things in place that tell you that they have to do. And
I don't know if
typically,
they don't know.
Not off the hand, not off the hand, no.
I believe in the past, people have gotten something saying.
I can get you that.
I was gonna say, could you
Yeah.
please?
Yeah, Mayor, I could get Ms. Briola that answer.
Okay.
All right, if there is a fine, like better terms guideline in the ordinance.
And if I remember in the past, when it was another situation with another business, there was a time frame that they had to comply to, once they got served with opening
Right.
in that manner.
Excuse me.
And if they didn't hit that time frame, there was an escalation of fines and fees. And in the end, this particular place did not have a liquor license, so you didn't have the hammer of putting something on that, this other establishment we're talking about. But they wound up fixing it in the end after paying X amount of fines.
Gotcha. Thank you.
No problem. Anything else, Kurt?
I just want to follow, just the Tim and Dale and the building department have been diligently working on it. It's not.
And talking to the folks.
And talking to them, so it's an ongoing, it's not been put on a back burner any means.
Nobody dropped it. I think what's happened is there's probably 5 or 6 that are,
It's a
in my
heavy
opinion,
process.
that are gonna go to the planning board.
Mm.
And I think that they're kind of getting their ducks in a row. I know that some of their own personal attorneys are starting now to contact the borough and seeing how to process that, how that goes. So,
Thank you. Appreciate
and the planning board meeting for February was canceled for lack of
Right.
planning. So I would say if some of them came to the table in the next 10 days, they'd probably get a quick meeting, or, at least to start the process in March. Claudette?
Well, that's Rita, 12 Cedar Down. Thank you, Stacy, for bringing up our working 220, caught me by surprise. I opened phone bills to see the 2 to 3 hours a day that has been alleged administration is spending on Facebook complaints or customers. When I got the phone bill, I was a little surprised to see that there are 4 phone lines registered to, about 3 to Rebecca King and 1 to a Kathy. Is there a
What's the
reason?
bill, sorry?
1 to a Kathy King and 3 to a Rebecca King. I didn't get any others, but I got those 4. Is there a reason why
Because I've had my phone numbers since high school, my mother bought it for me, not taking a special trip to Verizon and take it off of her way.
But why is it on the town bill?
Because I only get a portion paid for. I only get one, they don't pay my whole bill.
So there's 4 lines here, but only 1 is for the town?
Only the one I pick up, nobody calls my stepdaughter or anybody else.
Is there a way for the town, I mean, this is very deceptive because I'm trying to find the 2 to 3 hours a day that, and all of this was redacted, all the phone numbers with the times on them, so I really couldn't tell. And that was the only one I got. This is the only phone bill I got, so I thought maybe, because I had requested 5.
I thought you got more because I saw the request and there was other phone numbers, so it was
Yeah,
like
but there's
100
no name thing, I
something.
can't,
Oh,
there's no way to figure out where they went, because everything's redacted, so you can't
you'll have
see
to add
where
to
they go. But everyone knows my fight is R14-220, and I want it off the books, so I'm trying to find your proof that the town has been spending 2 to 3 hours a day on this, and yet I can't seem to find it, but I get phone bills and phone numbers.
I thought that the conversation went that it was our administrator, for the record.
Well, I had asked for those records, but I don't seem to
Okay.
have them.
I didn't. I'll look into that.
If I may, Mayor, the conversation really revolved around the amount of times administratively overall that was being spent.
Not necessarily on the phone.
Not just on the phone, you could be trying to engage in lunch, and folks would come up to you with complaints or other issues.
2 to 3 hours a day.
Did we document every case? I will say this, since the infamous resolution has been introduced, I have gotten very little comments, questions, or concerns about any activity on those types of social media. So, I'm not saying as a result of the introduction of the resolution, but I can tell you this, that's just about disappeared from my life. And I can't tell you why, and I'm not about to speculate, but I haven't had to spend as much time with the employees or other folks about things that are threatening or other things that have been said out there. So, and I don't read into that, so just so you know. So whatever's happening, I can't comment on as to
It's
why.
because people are ignoring it. They're not, there isn't a person, not a council person, not anyone, that's putting the disclaimer on there saying that they're not, I mean, everybody's just ignoring it. So the point is, if they're ignoring it and they're not following it anyway, why do we have it? We look like a bunch
But your
of-
question was about the phone bill, and
Well,
all I
yes,
did was
because
make a
that's-
statement that what was passed is not current, and I can't attribute that to the resolution or not, but that's the truth. So I don't know how you want me to connect other dots, I can't.
Well, the statement that was made was 2 to 3 hours of work time during the work day were spent answering questions. That's the statement that was read, because I have a copy of the statement.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with that. I know we said that, but I don't think anyone said it was over the phone. That's all I'm
It
saying.
wasn't just phone.
Okay.
I think if you're reading that was just on the phone, I think that's not accurate.
We were taking into consideration the borough clerk's time, people coming down there.
Well, I
things.
spoke with the borough clerk. I beg to differ on that, but that's okay.
Okay, I'm just telling you what we got some more
She
feedback.
said she did not receive anything.
Okay.
She told me that. She's not here to defend herself or verify that, so it's no point, but it just, it goes against everything in my brain, everything that, I've talked to constitutional law people, and it's just, it's wrong on every level. Just get rid of it. If nobody's paying attention to it, get rid of it. Keep the people in town, and there are a lot of people that find it offensive. I was surprised Stacy brought it up, because everybody indicates that it's my fight, and I'm the only person that's fighting this, but,
Who's everybody?
well, I mean, people say, oh, you know, I'm the big mouth about it, and I am the big mouth about it, because it bothers me that much, and I think it's an embarrassment to us to have this on the books, saying that people that want to go onto any kind of social media site in the town of Highlands have identified themselves as not representative of the town of Highlands. It's just wrong.
Just to be clear, because I think you did misunderstand it the last time. It's not any person. It's someone who is sitting in a position with the borough. So if you're not in any position, then you don't have
Or a
any-
volunteer, or if you so much as volunteer to help with the recycling, you become a volunteer and you have
That's
to.
not accurate.
Well, that wasn't necessarily the intent. Let's say there's volunteers on the budget committee. If they make a statement that something is going to get cut, then, and that's on Facebook, that can give the impression that the budget committee is now considering it.
Or layoffs or things like that.
If I may though, if that wasn't the intent, then the language in the ordinance is very poorly done, and again, it should just be removed. I mean, the only person I know of who even thinks about complying with it is my husband. When he posts something, occasionally, and he does not post very often. You know, so, again, why is it even there?
It was enough of a controversy to make the USA Today. If it made the USA Today, which then brought people out, I got a call from Switzerland about it. So it is out there, and they're like, what is your town doing? I'm doing personal informal study, and I've asked what people think of it, and they say dictatorship. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Mayor,
You can't speak publicly. Okay?
just so you're aware, and I understand the worldwide global view, we've been contacted by no fewer than 6 municipalities based on the resolution because they're facing similar types of issues in their community, and they're trying to vet this out. And they're not so certain as you contend that it's unconstitutional and all that. So there are communities around the state of New Jersey, and again, I'm not going to comment on the resolution. It's not an ordinance. It's not an enacted law. But we have, on the other hand, we've been approached by folks who are saying, wow, we're dealing with a lot of the same issues. How's that going? And I can't comment other than to say, since the resolution, and I understand it's been a contentious issue, I have not been bombarded with the amount of issues prior. And again, I'm not saying it's because of the resolution, but I'm telling you the facts.
So, can we agree on this? If it sounds like somebody wants to, from the table, wants to tighten up maybe some of the verbiage.
I voted against it, okay,
Right,
so.
and I recognize that. I guess what I'm saying is, it sounds like, at minimum, there might be a conversation about tightening up some of the language. I'm not saying reverse it, I'm not promising it's getting thrown out. I'm saying what you're saying about the language of what it's specific for. That was brought up tonight, and it sounds like it's something that should be tightened up.
Tim, I brought it up to you almost immediately thereafter. How we adjusted our employee handbook for our employees about posting on social media. Because I believe our employee handbook doesn't have anything in it. Has that been adjusted to reflect this resolution of proper conduct? Because I beg to differ. I have towns calling me saying, what were you guys thinking? So it goes both. Excuse me, Tim. Excuse me. I'm speaking. You can have the floor when I'm done. It goes both ways, like you said. I beg to differ. I would like to see the evidence of the 2 to 3 hours and the time you spend dealing with Facebook issues. How many employees does this town have that you're spending that much time addressing issues? And last time I checked, you're the commander-in-chief of the employees. You set the tone and say, hey, unless it comes from your immediate superior, from Facebook or anybody else, it's not law. You're the boss. You're the boss of the employees. So if someone's coming to you and saying, I hear this on Facebook, I would think you would take the responsibility of saying, hey, unless it's coming from me, disregard what's going on Facebook. I'm your boss. Believe me, I would tell you if something was going on. And I beg to differ that I think their evidence is not there. So I do agree with what Mayor Nolan's trying to suggest, that we tighten
Let's
it
at least have
up
a conversation about it.
and clean it up.
I think if more than one person,
I did vote against it, it's an embarrassment.
okay, I think if more than one person is making a comment about some of the language not being maybe correct or tight, and Ms. Ryan said she would like to address that.
I will,
I think we
okay,
give them
I will
respect
meet with Claudette,
to
okay,
the,
we'll
both the
talk
resident and the
afterwards.
person, and
Right, if anybody else is interested.
you wanna get together 2 or 3 people and have a conversation.
Yeah, we
However,
may.
I will open up another thing too, and you may disagree with me on this. I think it's a whole different level of someone on our time, on our computer, getting paid by us, going on there doing something, than someone on a volunteer board or representing the borough in a different capacity. Having lived through it, I mean, right or wrong,
Yeah,
because
I
you get
agree.
fired in the real world
I
if you do
agree.
that, right? So, but I also agree with Mr. Card, if we're gonna do that, that's gotta be represented not only in their handbook, but in their collective bargaining agreement.
Correct.
So, in the fairness of conversation, we should have it. Would you like to start that with 2 or 3 people?
Oh, yes, I will start that. So-
And if that's something that's gonna come back, that we have to tighten it up, I'm not saying we're throwing it out, I'm not saying we're voting it out.
Okay, let's have
But
a
if there, it
discussion.
sounds like there's discussion that could be had, I'm all for it.
Okay, thank you, Mayor.
And I promise you that we give the due diligence and listen to it. I'm only promising me, I mean, everybody else is pretty reasonable, they listen to everything we come to the table, but at least we'll have the conversation. I promise you that.
It'll happen.
I agree.
Especially if we're talking about, specifics. So if the spirit of it is this, then the law should state that. It shouldn't be something that's in the wind, which I agree with. If we didn't do a good job in the specifics, then that has to be addressed. No question about that.
Thank you.
Mayor, if I may, though, for the record, if an employee does come to me with a concern, I need to address it. Regardless of how Councilman Card feels, I still need to address their concern, and I will continue to do so as the borough leader.
I know you
Thank
do,
you.
Tim. And again, for the record, how many employees do we have in this town? And how many times can they come to you with a Facebook issue and say, I have a problem with what's being on Facebook? Employee X. I've had this conversation with you 2 months ago about Facebook postings. I've told you, unless it comes from me, disregard anything you read on Facebook. How many times did you have to do that?
And I have repeated, since this came up, that has disappeared. So I'm not taking credit or blame, but that time has passed.
So that died down a lot, it's fair to say, whether it was coincidence or not.
Said
since
that
he- Okay,
repeatedly.
okay, so we get at least that we're satisfied we're having a kind of dialogue,
Agree.
okay?
I agree with that. I think
There's no reason to not talk about it.
Yeah.
I'm not promising anyone
I'll
votes
report
anywhere,
back
but
and-
have the conversation if you can in the next 2 weeks,
Yeah,
and we go
yeah,
from there,
I'll do that.
okay? I'll motion to adjourn.
Looks like, by Mayor Norm, second by Ms. King.
Thank you, everybody, for coming out. Have a great night.